The 2026 season is still 9 months away, but that doesn't mean it's too early to talk about who we think are going to be the top 20 picks in redraft leagues for fantasy football next season. So the way we're going to do this is we're going to go back and forth. Well, there'll be 5 rounds on our sleeper big board here, 4 teams. That'll give us 20 picks. Ty, you're going to kick us off with your first pick. I'll go second, and then I'll go back to you, back to me. We'll go that way. So, Ty, who do you think should be the 101 in 2026 redraft leagues?
Give me Bijan Robinson. You take talent. You take kind of the prime year for rookie running backs in their third year, and you add in Kevin Stefanski as your head coach with his offensive coordinator from last year. And if there's anything that we know about Kevin Stefanski offenses, they like to run the ball. Just go back to Nick Chubb, look at his finishes the first 3 years with Stefanski before he got hurt. He's a guaranteed top 10 finish at the position. Now, that's not exactly like if he were to finish as like the running back 10 as the 101, you're going to feel disappointed. But Bijan's talent and his receiving capability gives him a pretty safe floor, even higher than that kind of running back 10 spot, probably closer to running back 6, running back 7 even. So Bijan to me right now is the clear 101. We can make an argument for maybe 1, maybe 2 other guys, but I think consensus right now would say it's Bijan 101.
Definitely. And, you know, like you said, extremely talented, 23 years old. Kevin Stefanski's going to run the ball, only 11 total touchdowns last year. It's really hard to vote against this guy. He's going to get the volume. He's going to get receiving work, and he's unbelievably talented. Now, I do got to say, we're going through half PPR right now. So that's the way we're looking at it. Bijan, I think we can both agree. PPR, half PPR, doesn't matter. We think he's the 101. Standard. I think it's Bijan Robinson still. I'm going to take the guy who was actually running back 4 this season. He was running back 1 last year at the 102, and I think that's Jahmyr Gibbs. Ooh. He scored the same amount as Puka did in half PPR formats this season. He's just so ridiculously good with the ball in his hands. This could still be my running back bias. It could be a little bit of, if the Rams win the Super Bowl right now, does Matthew Stafford walk away? If he does, then obviously, you know, like I'm just thinking we're talking in January. It is currently January 23rd when this comes out for you guys. So I'm trying to think way ahead. And I think Jahmyr Gibbs is about as bulletproof of a running back. 2 top 4 finishes in the last 2 seasons. Doesn't get crazy workloads. So, right, you're not worried about the same wear and tear as like Bijan seen 370, touches last year. I mean, we're still over 310, but nonetheless, Ty, I'll send it back to you here. 103 or 103. I assume there's not much debate in this one for you.
No, probably because I would have taken him at the second pick. It's Puka Nacua. Mm-hmm. I think there's an argument for the next receiver to be this pick, but Puka gives you such a floor. And what we saw this year is that we've known that Puka has a ceiling, but like when it's, week altering upside, like the next receiver who will be taken eventually here. I don't know when, but eventually. Like Puka is a guaranteed like top 3 pick, in my opinion. Knowing the role that he has as kind of Cooper Kupp 2.0 in this Rams offense, everyone should be back. I'm not expecting a random surprise retirement from Matthew Stafford or anything. Like Puka's, what he showed this year, he can sustain next year in this Sean McVay offense. I'm not worried about any kind of regression.
Yeah, it's stupid how good he's been. 6 games over 20 half PPR points, 0 games in single-digit half PPR game and half PPR single-digit half PPR games in games where he wasn't knocked out. He scored 3.8 against Baltimore, but only played half of the game because he got hurt. The dude is unbelievable, and so I don't blame you at all. I'm going the same way. I assume you're talking about Jamar Chase here, who at this point, as long as he's attached to Joe Burrow, is going to be a top 4 pick. I think you could go any direction with these top 4. I think you can go any direction with these top 4. and it can't really get mad at you. They are unbelievable. Obviously, Jamar Chase had to deal with Jake Browning for a little bit, so that's why you see the dip if you're looking at his game log from the beginning of the season. But then ridiculous volume under Joe Flacco. It'd almost be nice if he had Flacco. Joe Burrow returns, looks great again. I don't know. He's done it ever since he was a rookie. He's attached to one of the better quarterbacks in the game. Do you have any qualms about this, Ty, or is this exactly who you were talking about here?
This is exactly who I was talking about, right? Like Jamar Chase will have the games where he can flash like the 18 targets and stuff like that. I would expect more games like that from Puka than Jamar Chase. But Jamar Chase, if it's between Puka and Jamar Chase to give you 50 on a week, because we've seen it before, it's Jamar Chase.
Yep. All right. 105. This is where it starts to get a little more interesting. I still think my 105 is pretty clear, so it'll be interesting where you go with this one.
Surprise. Jackson Smith and Jigba.
Ooh, all right.
This is assuming that Clint Kubiak stays in town, all that kind of stuff. JSN then should be a top 5 pick. 36% target share on the year, about 4.5 points more than the next closest in Amon-Ra St. Brown. And it's not just the volume that JSN gets, it's the downfield stuff that he gets on top of all of it, right? So you get some touchdown, some high touchdown numbers, you get big plays, and you get volume, right? It's kind of the perfect trifecta for a guy like JSN. 163 targets is a career high. So naturally, the question is like, does he regress maybe a little bit? But I think with a Clint Kubiak-led offense, this is just kind of what we can expect from JSN as the alpha in the Seattle offense. Now, yes, you have Sam Darnold. So does Sam Darnold regress? Like, there's so many like what if questions that you can have about JSN, but you just have to respect the fact that 163 targets, 120 receptions, almost 1,800 yards and 10 touchdowns. That's hard to beat. Sure, hard to replicate, but it's not going to substantially decrease enough where he's going to be a bust or anything like that. As long as Clint Kubiak stays in Seattle.
Yeah, and I think honestly, even if Kubiak stays or leaves, I don't know if he necessarily has this ceiling anymore. I think he could, depending who they bring back in. But he's Sam Darnold's guy. The question is, how does it look if they bring in another wide receiver, a rookie or something like that to play along JSN just because they threw the ball such a little amount this last year? I'm a little worried about some regression. I still think he's worthy of a top 10, 10 pick at worst. I think this is probably the area he's going to go in. This is where I'm going to draft him in. But I am a little bit concerned about that. A guy whose volume I don't think is going to go away is, and this is who I would have taken at 5, if I'm going to be honest, is Christian McCaffrey. I get it. He's going to be pushing 30. I think he might be 30 next season. But you look at it, no George Kittle next year. Juwan Jennings, probably gone. No Brandon Ayuk. He had 311 carries, 102 receptions, 924 receiving yards, 17 touchdowns, and only had 3.9 yards per carry. And I think he's going to do it all over again. If we're being honest about this San Francisco team, they got one more year to make a push for the Super Bowl. I don't think they make it, but I think they got one more year with the roster they have. Trent Williams is going to be 39 next season. Christian McCaffrey is going to be 30. They got a lot of older guys. George Kittle's hurt. So he's going to be the offense. It is going to completely run through him once again. Obviously, there's injury risk. Obviously, he's older. I get all of it. He still outscored everybody by 2 fantasy points per game this season in half PPR formats.
Yeah,
so only reason what it comes down to.
Yeah, only reason why I got JSN ahead of Christian McCaffrey is the fact that we got 400 touches out of Christian McCaffrey. Again, the opportunity in the path is certainly there for him to repeat it. Mm-hmm. But typically that's the 400 touches is quite a hefty number, especially when you have the wear and tear that Christian McCaffrey does. There's just some more risk with him, I think, going into 2026, where you can legitimately ask, like, is he the same league winner like we had predicted him to be that's still to be determined. We're still, again, 9 months out. But at this point, I would rather take the safety or with what I know with JSN rather than McCaffrey and risk that regression.
So all I'm going to say, he goes 2 good years, gets hurt for a year or two, 2 good years, gets hurt for a year or two. This was the first year of good year. He's going to have another one. That's all I'm going to say.
Odd year Dak Prescott, right? That sometimes that's all the analysis you need.
Exactly. All right, Ty, moving on to you. Now it really starts to get interesting. You can go a couple of different ways. I see 4 players I think are pretty worthy of this pick. So which direction do you go here?
I think because, like you said, there's like 4 different guys that can go here. I'm just going to take the guy that I know is going to be Mr. Consistent for me, and that's Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Okay.
I know on the surface, maybe the Drew Petzing hire in Detroit isn't the most exciting hire, but what I do know is that Amon-Ra St. Brown is going to still get fed targets, even in the chaos that was this year in Detroit, right? With all the play calling mishaps and whatnot, he still walked away with 172 targets. So Drew Petzing knows, right? We got to get Amon-Ra St. Brown the ball in the passing game. He is 1 of 1 in that offense. Yes, we like Jameson Williams a fair amount. I'm not going to deny that, but Amon-Ra St. Brown is the definition of consistency. So again, when you make the, when you see that, like, it could be like 3 other guys here and they all have like intriguing cases, I'm just going to take the easy one and just go, I know exactly what I'm getting with Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Yeah, he's been the wide receiver 3 seasons in a row. John Morton had play calling taken away from him, and he is still wide receiver 3. I don't care what Drew Petzing does. It's the same with Jahmyr Gibbs. I don't care about the play calling change. These 2 guys are play caller proof essentially at this point, as long as Dan Campbell's the head coach. That's the way I'm going to look at it. Jameson Williams, like you said, that's where it becomes a question. David Montgomery, Sam Laporta, these guys are more question marks. Amon-Ra, Jahmyr Gibbs, they are about as bulletproof as it comes. My pick here gets tough, right? And I'm going to be honest. The guy I want to take here is Devon Achane. However, no Mike McDaniel. That scares me a little bit. That makes me wonder, is it Devon Achane? Is it Mike McDaniel? What's this offense going to look like? Jonathan Taylor again, another guy. 400 touches last season. Daniel Jones is even going to be ready. How's the start of the season going to look? I'm going to go with the guy I trust the most to be great, and that's CeeDee Lamb. I attached to Dak Prescott. I don't care if George Pickens is back. I don't care about any of the other things. If CeeDee Lamb has George Pickens, he is going to be very, very good for fantasy football as long as he's healthy. I'm going to take my sure thing here and go CeeDee Lamb.
I like it. I really, really like it. Just because, again, with the other running backs that you could take here, there are question marks with them. They're pretty undeniable question marks just because of what's going on around them. So I think that's the right pick with CD there.
Yeah. Hey, I'm going to be honest too. We're getting in the territory where, and I'm not saying we're picking him yet, but people in their drafts are going to start thinking about, depending on what news is coming out, Malik Neighbors. And I just want to name that up front, that at this point, I want to ask this because people are going to say, oh, where's Malik Neighbors? How many games, if you had to guess right now, are you going to project him to miss? I'm going to say 4. That's kind of where I'm at. Hope, that's the mindset I have in this draft is we have 4. I have 8 weeks until I have full go Malik Neighbors, which is awesome. But I just want to name that up front because he's a big name and he's the one guy here that's really going to have injuries affect where he goes in this draft.
Yeah, he only played 4 games this year. So if he misses 4 games for 2026, that's about a year out of action then, which lines up pretty nicely for that kind of ACL recovery. I'll say 4 as well, maybe 6 at the most, just because if the team wants to be a little cautious with it or a little conservative with trying to get him back on the field. But it's not even the fact of like how many games that we're missing. It's the ramp up until we see like reliable fantasy production from Malik Neighbors, which wouldn't surprise me if it's at least like half the year, where it's going to be a little rough to begin with, but then second half of the year, he's kind of league winner type, because then he's not fully, 100% Malik Neighbors, but he's a little more, I don't want to call it game shape. But he's back into the speed and flow of football into the game. So there is a lot more risk than just, Malik Neighbors is coming back and it's all, we can just pick up where we left off. There's a little more to it.
So I know Malik Neighbors obviously isn't your pick here, but I just wanted to name that, knowing that around here is when, especially Giants fans, New York's a big fan base, is going to start saying, where is this guy? So with all that being said, who would be your 9th pick?
I really, really struggle with this one. It does come down to running backs for me.
Okay.
It comes down to Jonathan Taylor. It comes down to Devon Achane. I think there's a case to be made for Josh Jacobs here.
Ooh, Josh Jacobs, not where I thought you were going to go. You were saying a third. I thought you were going to throw James Cook in there. So Josh Jacobs is interesting to look at over James Cook in this one.
James Cook and Saquon are a little lower for me just because I have no idea what I'm going to get with their offenses for 2026, right? No more Joe Brady. If he's the head coach, then that gives me a little hope then for James Cook that it's, we're kind of bringing what we had this year into 2026. But like, so coaching situations there, Saquon, it just Philly, like vibes are just way off with Philly. They were during the year. Vibes, I think, will stay off or say what, they will just be off all off season for Philly as well. So the reason why I put Josh Jacobs up there is because, again, I know what I'm getting, right? You're going to get 300 carries out of Josh Jacobs. You're going to get double-digit rushing touchdowns. We were seeing some receiving work go his way over the last 2 years, which is a big plus because he really wasn't getting that beforehand. So, again, Jacobs, in my opinion, is at least a conversation here. But ultimately, I am going to go with Devon Achane.
Ooh, okay.
Yes, there are question marks on the quarterback for both the Colts and the Dolphins. But what I can rely on more than what I can rely on with Achane more than Jonathan Taylor is just more well-rounded volume with Achane. I know he's going to stay involved in the receiving game no matter who the coach. Yeah, I know Halfley is the coach in Miami now, but whoever the play caller is, I know that Achane's going to stay involved in the receiving game. I know he's going to rack up carries as well. So that gives him a bit more of a floor versus Jonathan Taylor. When the touchdowns didn't hit like they did at the beginning half of the year, there's not really much going on for Jonathan Taylor. So that's why I think Achane, both JT and Achane are risky, but I feel like Achane's a little bit less risky than Jonathan Taylor, despite their circumstances.
Yeah. And you talked about it here. I'm going to go Taylor. He was the other guy I was between. I get it. Back-to-back 300 touch seasons. You have some worry. To me, he's the next closest player that I think you could have to continuous volume usage to Derrick Henry. Not touching Derrick Henry. What Derrick Henry's doing is untouchable, but I think he's that next guy of he can keep doing it year after year. It's going to be impressive. He's going to be, he's 27 right now. He'll be 28 at the end of next year with no contract. So that'll be interesting how this plays out. This is going to be a contract year. Daniel Jones is going to come back. Shane Steichen's shown the last 2 seasons. Hey, I gave you 303 carries in 14 games in 2024, 323 carries this last year, another 45 receptions. So they lean on him a ton. Volume is not a worry. And he continues to show I'm an unbelievably talented running back.
Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Underdog, where you can get into the game this season playing Pick'em. It's extremely simple. Just pick higher or lower on 2 or more of your favorite players. For example, I'll pick the higher on Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, and Xavier Worthy. If I played $10 and got all 3 of them right, I would win $60 just by watching football. And that's the beauty of Pick'em. You can track your picks and your wins while you enjoy the game. Now, if you're not on Underdog yet, scan the QR code on your screen or use our code FELLAS when you sign up, because new customers will get $50 in bonus funds when you put your first $5 on the app. Plus, Underdog will give you a free pick to use in your first entry. Again, that's code FELLAS over on Underdog. Now let's get you back to the rest of the show.
And we are back. We've completed the first round of what would be a 10-man league. For those on the audio podcast, Bijan Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs, Puka Nacua, Jamar Chase went first 4. Next 4 was JSN, Christian McCaffrey, Amon-Ra St. Brown, CD Lamb, and then Devon Achane and Jonathan Taylor to round out the top 10. Ty, who would you go with in the first pick of this hypothetical second round of a 10-man league?
Josh Jacobs.
Okay, well, I should have seen that one coming.
we hinted at it. I hinted at it a little bit ago when I was talking about the Devon Achane pick. But again, you know exactly what you're getting with Josh Jacobs, right? You're getting double-digit touchdowns in his 2 seasons with Green Bay. He's finished with 36 receptions. Like 36 isn't great, but it's a lot better than somewhere in the 20s, maybe even low 30s, right? So Josh Jacobs continues to be a volume and touchdown machine in this Green Bay offense. LaFleur continues to, utilize Josh Jacobs and have him be the focal point of their offense. I don't expect that to change going into 2026.
No, and I mean, I get it. I probably really don't have an actually good argument to say no to Josh Jacobs there. Like you said, it's, exactly who this guy is. He's going to be 1,300 to 1,500 rushing yards. He's going to get some receiving work. He's going to score a bunch of touchdowns. Dealt with a little bit of injury this season. You had Jordan Love had some injury stuff going on too. So, there's a lot that went into this year, a little bit of a down year, but they're going to give him the ball. Those first 7 weeks, 13.5, 14.4, 10, 29.7, 29.5, 18.3 half PPR fantasy points. That's kind of what you come to expect from a Josh Jacobs moving forward. Call me a homer. I don't care. I'm taking Justin Jefferson here. I get it.
Oh,
I get it. Super disappointing. Unbelievably disappointing this season, especially for how high you drafted him. JJ McCarthy looks scary. Still at 141 targets, still had a 30% target share. I get it. You're going to say, who cares? He had those targets. Who cares about the target share? Look what he did from week 10 to week 15 when he didn't score 10 half PPR points in a single game, where 5 of those games were below 6 half PPR points. I get it. Unbelievably talented. He put up with it for this season. It was a rough season last year. Or not last year, 2 seasons ago. You don't want to go 3 of the 4 years with Justin Jefferson in his prime, where he's not getting the ball, where you're not being successful. I have trust in KOC to figure it out enough to at least get Justin Jefferson the ball. I'm not saying he's going to make JJ McCarthy a good quarterback. I'm not saying they're going to win their division, but I have faith that they're going to go, 1,048 yards for a top 3 wide receiver in the NFL. That's not good enough. We got to get him the ball. I'm putting faith that we get a little bit of a return for Justin Jefferson here.
Gosh, that is shocking because, in my opinion, that's what they were already doing, was trying to get him the ball. And he was still the wide receiver 37 in points per game. So, to me, it's not necessarily a question of are they going to get him the ball or not, or try to get him the ball or not. It's going to come down to JJ McCarthy. And he was playing slightly better at the end of the year. But I think for him to return a top 12 value and a top 12 draft pick for you, there's a lot that needs to go right. And I would love to be proved wrong. Again, skull, you can see the purple here. Like that would be awesome to see. I don't know if I personally could sink top 12 capital on Jefferson after this year.
And you know what? I get it. People are probably going to say he's a homer. He's, whatever. Jefferson too, if he has his average of 7 touchdowns this last year instead of 2, which again, you could say JJ McCarthy did that. You cannot trust Justin Jefferson's going to score more than 2 touchdowns next year. If he has 7 like he has in years past, he's a top 12 wide receiver this season, and it doesn't feel quite as bad. So touchdowns played a huge part in it. And I think we see a rebound in the efficiency and in the touchdowns for Justin Jefferson. I get hating it. You'll probably be able to get him later in drafts. I understand. Yell at me in the comments, but Jefferson is my pick.
And so with my next pick, I'm going to go with the guy that I thought you were most definitely going to take because I think I interpreted me taking Josh Jacobs as, oh, I'm surprised that you didn't take this guy who I'm going to take right here, Trey McBride.
Oh, okay.
I know with Jonathan Gannon out of the picture, Drew Petzing out of the picture, we could have a very different offense here in Arizona that doesn't really feature Trey McBride as a 140 target guy. I'm just going to be honest. I was the first one to bring that up to the group, and I was like, I'm not sure where McBride should really go. But the more I thought about it, McBride is like one of the only things that this team can rely on going into next year. Unless Marvin Harrison Jr. takes a huge step forward, McBride should be kind of the lead guy again, regardless of who is calling the plays and calling the shots here. And with what we saw this year, like if we get anything similar to what we had this year, where McBride was essentially a wide receiver, he's definitely a top 15 shout. So we'll find out more as the offseason goes on. But at this point, I'm fairly confident in Arizona still looking at McBride as like their go-to guy in the passing game.
Yeah, it's the positional advantage is just so insane. And what we saw this year, like it is prime Kelsey numbers is what he put up. It was actually better in a lot of aspects than that from a target reception aspect. The guy I'm going to go with probably should have been who my wide receiver pick was right here. It's Drake London. You bring in Kevin Stefanski. He's been finished top 7 in points per game 2 seasons in a row. He's been unbelievable over and over and over again. The obvious question marks of he's significantly better with Michael Penix and Kirk Cousins. How does that affect all of it? I think Kevin Stefanski helps to figure that out in this offense. That doesn't concern me. So I'm going to bank on Drake London continuing to take another step forward and just being utilized heavily again in this offense.
I would agree with it. He's kind of I don't want to say he's like the next best receiver, but he feels like he's definitely at like the bottom of these, like he's at the bottom of this wide receiver tier before there's a break, in my opinion, or he's at the top of this tier and there was a break right after CeeDee Lamb. But Drake London, like this Kevin Stefanski hire gives that offense.
Oh, this will be old news by the time you hear it. But Ty, you need to know this. Brian Flores has signed a new contract with Minnesota Vikings to be defensive coordinator moving.
Let's go. That's huge.
It does say he's still a candidate for the Steelers and Ravens head coaching jobs. But if he doesn't land one of those, he is back with Minnesota. So he's not going anywhere. Those interviews with Washington and stuff like that was just to get a better contract, which I think is deserved at this point for sure. So sorry again for the viewer. That was strictly for us as Vikings fans. That's old news to you. And you know what? He could be the head coach of the Steelers by the time you're hearing this, and that smiles off our face. But at least we know it's not to be a defense coordinator somewhere else. So I'll let you get back to talking through your next pick.
Well, thank goodness. That made my day significantly better. Drake London, again, like I was saying, it feels like there's a top 5, and then Drake London is kind of like at the top of that next tier, or he's at the bottom of this like top 8 receiver tier. Yep. You could make an argument for. So I think London is definitely the next pick there. So the next pick for me is James Cook.
Mm-hmm.
You talk about ultimate playmaker on this Bills offense outside of Josh Allen because there is no receiver. I know that James Cook isn't really a huge receiving threat. He's only had 32 and 33 receptions the last 2 years. But we got rushing volume this year, which was the big thing because we came off of 16 touchdowns in 2024. So we were like, if we're going to get regression in touchdowns, we need volume to pick up a little bit, and that's what we got. So I'm expecting whoever the next coach is here in Buffalo, they're going to see James Cook, and they're like, we need to continue making him the offense because we got no one else outside of Josh Allen. And like, there's no one that Josh Allen can really trust or continue to rely on in the passing game. So it's got to be James Cook in that run game. So, yeah, double-digit touchdowns, probably like 280, 270 carries probably. And I'm going to say probably closer to 40 receptions. So you're getting a combined 300 touches next year from James Cook, more than likely.
Yeah, he's one that, people might say he should have gone earlier, and it's going to be really hard to argue with him on telling them no, he shouldn't. That's really where I'm at, and really what it comes down to. I just don't know which way he goes because of the coordinator, but this is probably the lowest he should fall. The next guy I'm going to take. This is I know there's allegations out there right now. I know there's all this. I know his quarterback's hurt. But what Rashee Rice does in an Andy Reid offense, Patrick Mahomes is not going to miss the whole season. Patrick Mahomes is going to have 9 months after surgery to get back. Maybe he misses the first month and a half. I get it. But this dude, Ty, he's unbelievable when he's on the field from a fantasy perspective. He put up, before Mahomes got hurt, 19, 21, 16, 6.8, 20, 25. He never had a game below 7 targets. He had, only had 2 games below 9 targets. He's just catches the ball constantly. They use him in the red zone. Travis Kelce either is going to be a year older or not on the team. If you're looking to get quick passes on this team, it's going to go to Rashee Rice. The fantasy aspect of it, I just think he's going to be the most utilized player on this team. And I don't think it's going to be close.
That's going to be the biggest thing, is that Patrick Mahomes timeline, because if we're getting, Gardner Minshew was on a 1-year backup contract. So it's essentially who they're going to bring in the meantime. But like you said, when Mahomes comes back, that Rashee Rice has one of the highest ceilings at the position then.
Yeah. And I think too, they're not going to just accept a lost season because Mahomes is hurt through the first part of the year. They understand, hey, we got Patrick Mahomes, we have a chance to win it every year. They're going to bring in someone who's competent. They know Mahomes might miss up to 6 weeks. They're going to bring in a player who they can trust from the backup perspective to try and win them at least three weeks and see what Mahomes can do the rest of the year. So I don't think it's going to be the same situation that was in Kansas City right now, which gives me a little more confidence for Rashee Rice. And again, we have not seen it in a full year from Rice, but when he's clicking in this Andy Reid offense, it's ridiculous from a fantasy perspective. And Ty, we have our last 4 players, and I do want to acknowledge there's a lot of bigger names left out here. People are going to be upset. We'll give an honorable mention, but we're talking, like we mentioned, Malik Neighbors earlier, Nico Collins, Ashton Genty, George Pickens, Brock Bowers, Derrick Henry, Saquon, Marion Hampton now with Mike McDaniel. Josh Allen, does he sneak into a first-round pick? Chris Olave, we talked about on last episode, right? There's a ton of guys who are worthy of consideration here. It's going to shift and move as the season goes on. Players get added, coaches move around. So we just want to acknowledge that we're not going to make everyone happy. We don't care. We just wanted to acknowledge this. With what would be the 17th pick, who are you taking here?
I went back and forth on 2 guys here. One of them was Saquon Barkley. And the reason why I'm not going with Saquon here, do you know who the Eagles have interviewed for their OC position so far?
I heard Matt Nagy. That's about it.
Matt Nagy, Brian Daboll, and Jim Bob Cooter from the Colts.
And Brian Daboll sounds like he's out.
Yeah. So I know that an offense can be better than what they were with Patullo with any of those coordinators. But
it could also be the same.
Could also be the same. And so that's ultimately why I'm going to go with George Pickens here.
Yep. I don't have
volume, upside, everything for a second round pick. Yes, it feels weird that he's a wide receiver too. when you've got guys like Nico Collins, Malik Neighbors, Lamb McConkey, Chris Olave, like some of those other kind of like wide receiver ones on other teams where you're like, you really want to take a wide receiver 2 over a wide receiver 1? I don't care. Okay. I know how good Dallas's passing game can be. And just based on what they did this year with how productive and how high scoring they were, that gives George Pickens, I mean, so much more intrigue than somebody that, I mean, you get what I'm saying.
Yep.
As long as you're a part of a good offense, I'm intrigued. It doesn't matter what your role is. If you're in a good offense, I'm intrigued. And yes, I am very much assuming he's back in Dallas. If he doesn't, then it's a different story. But if he's back in Dallas, I think this is where he should go.
Yeah, he's going to be the scary, but Jefferson's probably the scariest pick. That one's probably one that people are, going to give me watch back and be like, what the heck are you thinking? I still stand by it, but he's the next one that you would take here. And until you're like 3 weeks in the season, you're going to kind of be holding your breath of like, what did I do? And then got a feeling he drops 25 in one of those first couple of weeks. And you're like, okay, I did the right thing. I made the right move. Guy I'm going to go with, a little sad that he's dropping down boards. I was really hoping he'd be moving up in 2026 is Nico Collins. I get it. If you watch that New England Houston playoff game, you have no hope in CJ Stroud anymore. You probably think if that was the only football game you've ever watched, you were assuming CJ Stroud is not in the NFL anymore. That's how bad that was. That's not how it's going to be every week. This offense started to look better down the stretch as they got going. I honestly think Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel getting better is a good thing from Nico Collins. Allows them to move the ball a little bit more, allows them to use Nico in more than one way. Still, there's downside with Nico Collins just in this offense, especially the style of football that he plays of being more of a big play guy. But when he's healthy and when he's on, he's about as good as anybody on this list. So I'm feeling pretty confident with Nico there. We got 2 picks left, Ty. So why don't you take us home? We'll give you our last little honorable mentions afterwards. So with pick 19, who are you taking here?
I think this one is Saquon. I think this is the Saquon pick here. Like we had said just earlier, yeah, Matt Nagy, Brian Daboll, who very much seems like the Eagles are kind of his last resort kind of selection, and Jim Bob Cooter don't really give you that much excitement as play callers, but they should be better, maybe just slightly, than what you had with Kevin Patullo. And if that happens, I would expect that run game to get figured out. That's like number 1 priority. And if that happens, there is definitely some more intrigue than for Saquon. But there is the downside again that we get what we had this past year, where touchdowns aren't hitting. You're not getting receiving work. So it's just kind of empty calorie volume at that point.
Yeah, he's too good to kind of pass up here. I'm going to be honest. My next pick is between 3 guys. And I don't really know which way to go. So I kind of want to talk this through with you. I don't think Malik Neighbors is on the radar for me. I don't think I can go him here just because it's just too much of an unknown at this point. Maybe we'll feel better, get closer to draft time. Derrick Henry has to be a thought. Again, 307 carries, 1,600 yards, 16 rushing touchdowns. I mean, what do you do? Obviously, no new head coach, new offensive coordinator. So does that change? Probably not. And then the last one, I'm actually really strongly considering. I want to see if you can even guess who the third guy is that I'm strongly considering here. I'll give you one. I'll give you 2 guesses because I don't even think you can guess who I'm considering.
Chris Olave.
So he would probably be the 4th, but not Olave.
And can you give me the position at least?
He's a running back.
Ashton Genty.
No.
Oh,
Marion Hampton.
Fascinating. I did wonder about him.
Just he's going to get volume. He got it at the end of the season. Obviously, the playoff game, he did not get it. So, I mean, I shouldn't say obviously he's going to get the volume. The playoff game, I think, scared me away enough that I'm not going to go him here. But having Mike McDaniel with Jim Harbaugh, they're going to run the ball a lot. And it's going to be fun, exciting run schemes. Like that's what I'm excited for. Both tackles should be back next year, healthy, which again, going to be huge. I don't think people quite understand, the general public at least, how big that is for this offense in general, having those two guys back, the caliber of tackles that were out, getting those guys back. So I am going to go Derrick Henry here. But like you said, Malik Neighbors, Ashton Genty, Omarion Hampton, Chris Olave, and really Brock Bowers is probably the last guy I'd consider here as well, just because of the positional advantage. Out of those 5 guys that I just named, are there any, if you had to pick one guy that you think is going to make us regret not having him on this list, who do you think is going to be out of those 5? I'll name one more time. Malik Neighbors, Ashton Genty, Brock Bowers, Derrick Henry, or Omarion Hampton.
Probably Ashton Genty. Just because I don't want to use the cop out of like, you know what you're going to get with Ashton Genty, but you do have to think that whatever offense that they run in Vegas next year is going to be better, slightly better than what it was this past year. You know that he can make it work in the receiving game. He can handle a big rushing load as well. So, you know, the question will just be touchdowns at that point, but you know, volume cannot be beat, right? For Ashton Genty, or you know, for Ashton Genty, volume is king, right? So you're going to have more opportunities to put up fantasy points. So that's probably the one that I would lean on. But again, that's the most like coaching dependent one in my opinion, because if they get it wrong, then it's kind of, it's not looking great then.
Yeah, coaching and offseason, right? They got to rehaul the offensive line if we don't get those changes. The guy, Genty, Hampton, I talked about, those were the 2. Malik Neighbors, I think, as well, just because of if he comes back and he's ready to go, he's unbelievable. So
I'll say this too, like we did the top 20 picks, like Neighbors is comfortably an end of the second round guy for me. He's in that 21 to 24 range.
Yes.
So yes, just because Genty and Neighbors and Omarion Hampton, Brock Bowers, Ladd McConkey, Bucky Irving, some of those names that may not be on this, doesn't mean that like we don't think that they're like set, you know, that they don't find themselves in that second round or early third round. Like they will all be in that top 25 conversation.
Honestly, it makes me most excited next year to get an early pick, get 1 through 3, because this feels like such just a giant tier of players after probably CD Lamb. Of first 8 is pretty solid, but then after that you have 18 to 24 players that you could probably take in any order. And the fact that you're going to get 3 of those, you know, 2 of those guys plus a Bijan Gibbs or Puka to start the draft, I think is going to be pretty awesome next season. Well, that wraps it up for this week. Thank you for joining us. Next week, we have 6 players to buy now and 6 players to sell in dynasty formats. So those should be some fun episodes. Those are always a lot of fun. So make sure you tune in for that. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. I didn't even say that throughout the show. Hopefully you're doing it. But we, like I said, are going to be dropping 2 episodes a week for the rest of the season on Wednesdays and Fridays moving forward. If you want any more content from us, I'm at Camelot FFF on the X, at Tyler_Plath for Tyler FFLs for the Fellas page, the FFLs on Instagram, Fantasy Football Fellas, Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok, Fantasy Football Fellas Shorts for short form content on YouTube. Well, that'll do it for us this week, and we will see you later. Deuces.